This morning for breakfast, I had a lean protein bar covered in M&Ms. True story. They sold it at the 7-Eleven, and I said, "How can you have lean protein and M&Ms at the same time?" And they said, "I don't know." And I said, "Is it good?" And she said, "I never tried it." And I said, "I'll take this for the team." How many of you have ever heard of DECA? So DECA is a high school marketing association that gives students an opportunity to learn about different aspects of business, but also provides a competitive element. So twice a year, they get together with schools from all over the same state. They compete for state, and then if they qualify, they go on to nationals. Now, I competed my final year in high school and then found the college version called DEX when I went to college. And I really enjoyed learning about different aspects of business and marketing, and I also really love a good competition. And so one year during our fall leadership conference, we attended in Park City, Utah, and there were schools from all over the state who came, and we got to learn and go to classes and have keynote speakers, and it was just all kinds of fun. At the time, I was going to school in St. George, Utah, so we had about a 6-hour drive to get home. So on the final day, Saturday morning, we had to get up, pack up all of our belongings, put them on the van, and then we went to our final day's worth of training. We had a keynote speaker in the morning, a few classes before we got on the road. Now, that morning, they made us listen to the keynote speaker first before they let us eat. So as poor, starving college students, we have been up early, we've already packed our things, and we have to wait for our meal. But the keynote speaker was actually quite fascinating. She talked about different manners that are important in business settings. She talked about things like if you're eating a meal for an interview or for a business meeting, should you put your napkin on your table or on your chair if you get up to go to the bathroom? It's actually, you should set it on your table, right by your plate. She also talked about how it's important that you don't salt your food before you taste it. Even if you love a good salt lick, you should taste your food before you salt and pepper it because it makes you look close-minded if you season your food first. Very fascinating information. She spoke for about an hour, and then they were calling us up by table for breakfast. Now, the tables went from 1 to 37, and I happened to be sitting at table number 36. So I had to wait for almost all of the other tables to go before I could go get my food. But when I got there, I was thrilled because breakfast is my favorite meal of the day. And they had waffles and pancakes and pastries and all different kinds of fruits and syrups. And then it was just full of bagels and cream cheese, and we just filled our plates full. Well, we got to the end of the buffet bar, and that's where all the beverages were. And so my friend says to me, as we're trying to discuss how we're going to get our beverages and hold our plates, and we did not want to go all the way back to the table to set our plates down, to then have to come back and get our beverages. So she smartly says, "You hold, I'll pour." Teamwork. I love this idea. So I hold my cup out, she starts to pour across the table, and I'm starting to figure out that this is going to go south very quickly. So I take the plate that I'm holding and I set it on the table in front of me. Although in my haste, I don't set it far enough on the table, and the plate goes down my shirt, down my pants, and there is syrup, fruit, and all kinds of breakfast concoctions everywhere. Don't worry, I still have the glass. We did not spill a single bit of juice, but I look down, I look at my friend, I look at the glass, I carefully set the glass on the table, and then I bend down to clean up all my mess. And when I stand up, my friends are gone. They have left me to deal with this embarrassing moment all by myself. And so I embarrassingly take my plate to the woman who is working. I apologize. I say, "Hey, clean up on aisle 2. And she heads over to take care of that. Well, I go to the bathroom to try to clean myself up. There are brown syrupy marks in places there shouldn't be on my pants. But if you recall, all of my clothes are where? On the van. And so I go to my coach and I say, "Please, is there any possible way that I could change my clothes?" And he says, "No, because the driver had to go have their break now, because when we drive for 6 hours, they won't have their break." So the van wasn't even on the premises. So for the rest of the day, I got to wear sticky breakfast everywhere I went as a reminder of my embarrassing mistake. Sometimes I'm convinced these things happen to me just so I can tell embarrassing stories when I'm speaking. But I think about this story a lot because I think as leaders and as professionals, we have our plates that are completely full. And we go to events like this and we fill up our plates with even more things, more tips, more advice, more strategies. And then as we go throughout the day, it can be easy to say, oh no, I've just got to add that one more thing. And then as we leave feeling overwhelmed, and we risk completely dropping all of our plates in order for us to be able to even manage our days. So as I share strategies with you that are focused on helping you improve your leadership, increase employee engagement, and increase employee retention, we're going to be talking about strategies that are not intended to overwhelm, but it's possible that you might need to replace what you're already doing and add in different strategies that will be more effective for the times and seasons that we live in. Did you know that the average American will have 12 to 18 jobs in their lifetime? This is dramatically increased over time. And studies also show that people don't intend to stay at the current businesses that they're in. They're always constantly looking for something better. And so as leaders, we have to figure out how we can strive to increase employee engagement. So today we're going to talk about 4 key principles that will take your leadership to the next level in the day and age that we live in. The first is understanding the culture of collaboration. The second is increasing and changing the way that we communicate. The third is understanding how challenge is affecting your individual employees, both personally and professionally. And fourth is how to infuse a little cheer and happiness into the workplace so that people can overcome their challenges and increase their employee engagement. As we talk about the 4 C's, I want you to consider the opportunities that you have to maybe replace something that you're currently doing so that it's not about overwhelm, but it's about making sure that your employees are getting the help that they need and that they're feeling like they're connected to you as a boss or a leader, but that they're also connected to the company that they work for and want to stay dedicated. In times past, we talked about how there were bosses. In the 80s, it shifted into management. When I was in school in the 90s and the early 2000s, all of my business classes were under management. And now they're under leadership. However, I believe that in the time that we live in, leadership is not enough. So how do we move from a leadership-oriented lifestyle that is still important to a level of collaboration that allows people to feel a sense of connection to the place they work? Because people don't come to job interviews anymore and think to themselves, will I make enough money here, or can I contribute in a big way? They still do that. But whether consciously or subconsciously, they're also asking themselves one more critical and important question, and that is, do I belong here? Will I fit in? Will I feel included? Will I feel connected to the people that I work with? Because gone are the days where jobs were just something that you did to punch a clock and pay your bills. But now jobs have to fill a sense of lifestyle for you. You have to feel connected to what you do, the people that you work with, and you have to feel like you're contributing in new and powerful ways. But more importantly, we also have to remember that people are looking for a place that makes them feel happy, fulfilled, and challenged in the things that they do. So as a leader and as a boss and as an employer, how are you creating that type of culture that allows people to feel connected, but feel like they belong on really deep levels? Even if they don't tell you that's what they're looking for, that's what they're striving for and finding and hoping that someone else will do for them if your company isn't currently doing it. Now, as we talk about these different challenges, one of the things that I think is key in employee engagement is helping individual employees find true fulfillment and happiness in the work that they do. We've all heard of the pessimist who looks on the bad side and the realist who sees things as they really are. And then there's the optimist that looks on the bright side. And as leaders, you might identify people within your organization that fit each of these categories. You have a pessimist who's complaining all the time or who can't handle change. You have the realist who walks around just telling everyone, hey, this is the way it really is. You should have your eyes wide open. And then you also have the optimist from time to time who's open and welcome to the change that comes and is also looking around and trying to find ways to help everyone feel positive too. And I know that you're craving to have more optimists. However, as people face different challenges, both personally and professionally, I have found that being the optimist isn't enough. And as organizations, it's important for us to make sure that we understand the levels of satisfaction that our employees have so that we can be mindful of ways we can take that to the next level. And so above the optimist is what I call the happiest. The happiest doesn't just look on the bright side, they live there. They don't just look on the bright side, they are the bright side for the people that are around them. And in your companies, you might think, oh, well, that's really an idealistic goal. I'll just take people who will get their jobs done. But as we talk about ways to help your employees feel more engaged, if they feel a personal sense of connection, if they feel a sense of pride in the work they do, and if they can overcome the challenges that they see in and out of the office and the workplace, then they'll be more connected and better able to be engaged in the work that they do, and productivity will increase. You'll also find that they're more interested in advancement in the organizations that they work in, and they feel a deeper sense of connection to their team. So as you think about the different principles and topics that we've talked about today, I hope you'll consider ways that you can engage your employees on a way that takes them to the happiest level. There was a study done by the United Nations, and it's called the World Happiness Report. And the World Happiness Report went and surveyed individuals in countries all over the world. And as they did this, they asked a variety of questions, but the main core question was, on a scale from 0 to 10, 0 being the worst possible life and 10 being the best possible life, how would you rate your current life on a scale from 0 to 10? Now, they asked individuals in all different kinds of cultures. They asked individuals in developing nations where they have dirt floors and they have to walk for water. They asked this question to people who live in developed countries like America, where we have cell phones and cars and running water in our homes and often washing machines. Now, as a think tank, they were a little bit scientific, and so they had a hypothesis that individuals in developed countries like America would be happier than individuals who were in developing nations or who were below the poverty level. Now, I'm going to ask you this question, and I'd love for you to share by raise of hands. How many of you think that individuals in America were happier than those who are in developing nations? Okay. How many of you think that individuals who are in developing countries where they have dirt floors and maybe not a lot of money were happier? Interesting. Well, it's interesting because I thought that people who were in developing countries would be happier, that they wouldn't know any different, and that they would have greater levels of satisfaction. But the answers not only surprised me, but it surprised the World Happiness Report, because what they found was across all cultures, across all nationalities, across all bank account levels, whether people were not educated or whether they had the most education possible, male or female, it didn't matter. The median answer was 5. So it doesn't matter where you live, it doesn't matter what you have. I can only imagine that individuals are thinking to themselves, well, could be better, could be worse. I'm a 5. And unfortunately, as whether you would answer that question in the same way or not, we can constantly live in a space that says, well, my life is better than them, but it's not as good as that person. And in the social media day and age we live in, comparison is running rampant because we can see what other people are doing, even if we're only seeing a portion of their lives, rather than the full scope of it. And yet at the same time, as employers and as leaders, we're dealing with the challenge of making sure that every individual and employee that comes through our door or sits at our team meetings is having a level of satisfaction in their lives where whatever's happening personally outside the office doors isn't affecting the work that they do in the office doors. However, it likely is. We all carry our baggage with us to every meeting we go to, every client conversation, and every phone call. And so as leaders, you're tasked with the challenge to figure out how can you help your employees live their happiest lives so that not only their personal lives are improved, but their professional lives as well. Helping them understand the training to be able to overcome their challenges will increase their productivity more than productivity training. Because if they're distracted from all the things that are happening somewhere else, then it's difficult for them to even be productive because their mind is elsewhere. If you can find ways to help them overcome their challenges or even deal with them in stronger ways, getting them the training, the tools, and the advice to help them live their happiest lives, you'll find that employee engagement increases, the community and collaboration among your team increases as well, and the work that they do will be even better because they're more productive and more focused when they're with you. Now, today we've only had the opportunity to talk about a few of these strategies. However, I know, and as I've seen as I've worked with other organizations, that as you implement even these simple things, it's not in a sense to overwhelm. But if you take off some of the other pieces that are currently on your plate, perhaps some of these strategies will help you take your leadership to the next level and help you also live the happiest life.